Hello, strong, feisty women. So buckle up because I have a wild ride for you this week. I had the pleasure of sitting down with freediver and visual artist Nina McGowan. And what attracted me to Nina's story, aside from my totally geeky love for sports like freediving, is that she really didn't get into the sport until her late 40s, and she started racking up national records pretty much out of the gate. And then, shortly after she turned 50, she secured a world record for her age division with a dive of 43 meters, which is just over 140 feet for those of us in the US, that involved holding her breath for 2 minutes and 10 seconds. And she was just getting started. Last month, Nina set three new national records, including 46 meters or 151 feet in the constant weight no fins division, which, as it sounds, requires divers to use only their own muscle strength to propel themselves downward and back up again. And she went 58 meters or 190 feet in the free immersion division, which is very similar to the no fins division, but the free diver can pull on a guide rope to descend and ascend. That world record that she set at the World Championships in Turkey last year currently stands unchallenged. And in an email to me just a couple of days ago, Nina told me she is currently hoping to push to 60 meters or a mind boggling 197 feet. More remarkably, she accomplished all of this while also navigating her menopause transition, which was slowly stealing her mojo to do kind of anything until she found a doctor who helped her dial in a hormone therapy routine that, in her words, got her tail wagging again. And boy, did it. We talk all about that and more during this conversation. I also want to note that Nina is an artist first. Freediving is something that she does to inform her artwork, which currently addresses the overwhelm that people feel regarding the scale of climate change by rescaling aspects of it to the human body. She performs on stage, she makes sculptures, she speaks publicly on these topics, and she is a fascinating person to talk to. I hope you enjoy this one as much as I did. Okay, before we get to it, as always, check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Feisty Menopause. Sign up for my free weekly menopause blog at feistymenopause.com. While you're there, check out our Level Up membership, which has really grown into something special. We get on Zoom and we dive deep into our issues and we help each other through stuff. And of course, we get one-on-one time with awesome guests like Dr. Carla DiGirolamo. So check that out while you're at feistymenopause.com. And thanks so much, as always, for your continued great reviews and 5-star ratings that continue to come in. They really help me continue to get great guests, and I appreciate them. Finally, last thing, I want to give a quick thanks to Cool Jams for their support of the show. We get a lot of questions about the best moisture wicking sleepwear and sheets, especially at this time of life when everything is haywire, and Cool Jams is 100% it. I appreciate their support. If you're interested in checking them out, you'll find the info and discount codes in the show notes. Okay, enough of me. Let's have a few words about those awesome sponsors and get on with the show. Okay, Nina, we're going to pretend that any of that ever happened with some audio. We had some issues, but we are here. You are on the other side of the world from me in what looks like a lovely cabana by a pool. Where are you?
I'm in the Philippines. I'm in Panglao, which is a little island off Bohol. And I've never been to Asia before, so this is my
I
first
haven't
time here.
either.
No, and I'm in the future. So you're in my past, which was this morning. So this
That's
is
true.
now Thursday night, and I'm into my science fiction a lot, which has been a big influence on me. I couldn't go to space, so going underwater was the next best thing, in the pattern of my life. So anyway, science fiction. Yeah, I'm in the Philippines and it's 30 odd degrees, and I'm on the coast. And I'm staying at a freediving training camp here, and I live here in this place behind me is the pool, and then just beyond that is the beach and the boats, where it takes us out to the training site. Within 5-10 minutes, we can get 160 meters depth.
Wow.
And yeah, it's so convenient. It makes everything so easy, so you can just concentrate on your training. I'm a free diver. I suppose I've preempted.
Yeah, no. We'll get into all of that. And I before we get into all that, let's do the Wayback Machine. Speaking of time travel.
Yeah.
I as someone who's had my own evolution of self and came into sport later in life myself, I love a good evolution story. And from everything I've read and heard, you definitely have this lovely evolution story. You put up a really beautiful Instagram post last summer of you dancing at the bottom of the sea, which I'm hoping to use for our show tile because it's incredible. And I just want to set the scene with that because you said when the dance scene kicked off in 1992 in Dublin, I was 20 and painfully shy. I was awkward and nervous making conversation, so much of that I reckon I made other people uncomfortable around me as well. That one place I felt totally comfortable was on the dance floor. No small talk, no weird chit chat, just body exploring space. I feel like there's a lot of overlap between freedom of dancing and being underwater. And I'd love you to take us back a bit to that time of your life in Dublin. I heard that there was dancing, but also depression, and sometimes those things go hand in hand.
Um. Yeah. Well, I music has just always been so powerful for me, and I suppose if I had been given a choice to come into this body in any period of time, I think I probably might have chosen to have been born to experience the dance revolution in the early 90s. It was just incredible. I mean, I think everybody has their coming of age kind of, it's a really high point moment, but I think so much shifted in the culture. And there were so many possibilities, and music and sound and dancing together in front of these massive sound systems, and just using eye contact and bodily expression to communicate outside of the normal codes and strictures of society was just felt like the most liberating thing, and that we were creating a new world and a new society. Yeah, so I used to describe the dance floor as something akin to the holodeck from Star Trek. You become between these four pillars of space, and once you were within the metronome of the sound, and we're talking about 4/4 beats here, it was all house music. It came out of Detroit and Chicago, right,
Yeah.
in the mid 80s, and it hit Manchester. And they had the UK had a big long history of well, first of all, the Jamaican sound systems. The first immigrants to the UK in the 60s and 50s, they kept up their cultural thing, then right through Northern Soul, which was another US import, the B-sides of Motown and soul music. So they in the north of England right through the 70s, just before punk, they came together in dance halls, and just it was a really athletic thing. So it was actually, people ask me, do you have an athlete background? And I'd have to say that dancing in those big nightclubs, and the things that predated the nightclubs, there were just big halls in Dublin. There was makeshift spaces with big sound systems. Was probably formative in building muscle. But that sounds a little bit roundabout, but absolutely, the dance floor, you could be transported, and your body would tell you what way it wanted to move after a certain amount of time. You were so free. There was everybody was together, and there was a moving energy. It was really special.
And that then were you also, it was a special time, but it sounded like there was also some internal tumult, like that maybe I thought I heard that you had some depression when you were on Dr. Newsom's
Yeah,
podcast.
absolutely. And Celine, I think it was really down to me being a fussy eater as a kid. I used to live on white bread and salad cream sandwiches, which is really picklish and sour. That's what we have in Ireland. And I would just layer up these. I was just super fussy. And I think it was due to low hydrochloric acid when I look back, that I was trying to get that sour vinegar to help with my stomach acid. But anyway, I subsisted for years, and I think I just did it to myself. I gave myself IBS, cramps. Some of my earliest memories was being taken to the hospital in the middle of the night as a 3-year-old with these unbelievable and stomach cramps. So I'm convinced that the microbiome and the whole connected gut-mind connection. I mean, obviously, in your early 20s, you're out drinking booze and all these, it's full of wheat, and it really compromised my moods. And perhaps it was the contrast between sometimes feeling so low and then the highs of being okay. There was a certain amount of drugs taken, but never really, that wasn't the key point for me. It was being massaged by the sound systems, being completely immersed by this fantastic music and the energy that was driving it. But yeah, the depression, I mean, I've never really located it. Like, it all changed much later on in my life when I decided to take radical control of my health and to try to fix myself.
When was
So,
that?
well, aged 40. So I had stayed in Dublin right through my 20s and 30s. And Dublin is a great party town, and you're just out drinking with your friends the whole time. By the time I was 40, I was like, hey, this has been great crack, but I think I've had enough. I'm just bored with it at this stage. I'm going to try something different. So it was my 40th birthday present to myself, I guess, was to shift everything. I suppose I'd begun to find that my physical acuity or whatever it was lessening, and I realized how much I valued my body as a perceiving tool, and what it was I had to do to hone that in and make it the best instrument for being a medium for this world. Because the free things in life really are the best. Your health, you know. And I got into the idea of biohacking, or like really becoming responsible in every sense for how you interpret the world, you know. So I changed my diet. I found that did incredible things for me. I took up Bikram yoga, which was key, actually, in New York. I started in 2011, and I've been doing it 3 times a week at least ever since. I managed a yoga studio. Yeah, maybe I'm jumping ahead here, but it's hard to say what the depression was, but looking back, I'm sure it was diet related.
So you moved to New York?
No, I was there with my band. I played in a band.
Oh,
and yeah, but yeah, I've got all kinds of strings to my bow. I actually I can play the cello a little bit. I used to play it in a jazz club in the early 2000s in Dublin with a delay pedal. Put the microphone into the F hole and you just like hope for the best, that you're making the right sound. You get away with all kinds of crack in Ireland in these clubs and pubs. But yeah, my band's made up of artists, myself and 3 others, and we were playing in an art gallery and in the Lower East Side, and was there for 6 weeks, and it was just so freaking hot. I had to find a way to adapt and fast track to the heat, so I went into a Bikram studio on West 23rd, just at the Flatiron building there, Bikram Yoga NYC, and I stayed there for a month, and I just went, Jesus, this is actually, moving the body. The fascia, they say that memories and trauma is stored in the fascia, and when you're warmed up, you get a deeper stretch, and I think you can evaporate so much of this mental stress that's stored around the body. So that, along with refining the diet down, I mean, obviously taking out sugars, stopping drinking, stopping smoking. I basically stopped drinking because I said, okay, I have to stop smoking. I couldn't play bass.
They often go hand in hand.
I got a weird injury on my arm, and the doctor said if you continue smoking, that was so close to your ligaments, you're not going to regain, you won't be able to play. And I said, well, fuck this, playing the bass again, which is a visceral instrument. When you're playing away and you're getting the feedback of the sound, you can actually massage yourself and then lose yourself in the moment. Flow states is really interesting to me and important. So really, it was the cultivation of all these things I held so dear. Shivers from music. Do you ever get shivers when you listen to music moving down your back? And it's just, I think you can connect into your own nervous system and soothe yourself in the most unique ways, and then use this energy for whatever. It just makes life worth living. So the cultivation of these experiences was really what I decided I wanted to focus on in my 40s. And then I suppose my artwork is a research of this soma aesthetics, the aesthetics of somatic experiencing, and using the body as your primary interpretation tool. So, it's been a long process of investigation into various substances, either through feeling music viscerally to going underwater to a space that's completely empty of any of our cultural detritus or language, to get a reset, in a lot of ways.
Where does the water come in?
Where does the water come in? The water comes into
your life. Like, when do you discover it?
Well, I was thrown into swimming pools when I was a baby before I learned how to
Right.
walk. So I think that the tactile experience of water predates my language formation. So I don't have ideas or words to explain how I feel about water. I think maybe I felt it like a safe place because I swam before I walked, and maybe I associate the land with falling over, knocking my knees as I learned to walk, and the water had none of these. And being held, and just feeling safe. So when I look down into the water, I think I'm flying. Some other people might think they feel scared, or and also my ability to make sound go away by going underwater. I can control my environment. So it was like an escape. It's always been a great escape. And holding my breath makes sound go away as well. You can change everything through the water. So yeah, so I learned how to swim. My dad was a scuba diver in the early 60s. My house was full of items that he had brought up from wrecks. I was obsessed with the Titanic since the time I was 4 or 5. My parents' friends would come over and they go, Nina, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'd say, an underwater archaeologist. I was fascinated with the idea that you could circumvent history by going underwater. Things could live forever underwater. There was places still held from 1912 which had been untouched by man, and they were intact. Maybe you could go back in time. So we've got this fluidity of time and all these elements moving around, and so a fascination with water has held with me all my life. I swam breaststroke from my school then, just catching the water, something. But I have to say, I lost touch with it once the dance floors came in. I swapped around the experience. And
when did you try scuba yourself?
Well, when I finished art college, I was 29. I was traveling through Central America. It was my first time in Central America. I used this water thing as my escape plan as well. So I got to Utila in Honduras. I was there with my sister and an Italian friend, and she was saying, this is the cheapest place in the world that you can get your PADI open water. So I did that. And of course, within the first 3 days, I decided, you guys can go on. I'm going to stay here. 4 months later, I came out of PADI Dive Master. And I came back to Europe, and I worked in Cyprus as a wreck tour guide of the Zenobia, which is this
wow,
massive ferry outside Larnaca Harbour. Yeah, I became a specialist of that and other various underwater Roman remains and archaeological. So actually I did, like, I was kind of saying, am I bound to this promise of being an artist to myself? Well, maybe I can do something else. I can go and live on an island and be a scuba diver for a while. So I did that. But I came back to Ireland, and essentially it's expensive to dive in Ireland. It's very cold. You have to wear very heavy wetsuits, which are very cumbersome. And it just never happened. Do you know what I mean? It was just like, as much as I loved it, it was just not accessible. And it wasn't until 2019 when I was on a liveaboard in Egypt, a dive holiday, that I stuck 5 days on the end, traveled up to this mythical town of Dahab, which is the Arabic word for gold, and it sits 100 kilometers north of Sharm el Sheikh on the Gulf of Aqaba, overlooking Saudi Arabia in the distance. And the blue hole is why Dahab really exists. Before that, it was a little Bedouin village, but there's a sinkhole a few kilometers north of the town that goes down to just over 100 meters, and it attracts scuba divers, free divers to go in and experience depth and pressure in a confined space. It's literally a sinkhole with an archway of light at 55 meters. Actually, the Netflix film, The Deepest Breath, is just coming out, and it's about an Irish free diver and Dahab, and you'll see everything to do with this place I talk about, the blue hole and the archway at 55 meters, where oxygen becomes toxic. Anyway, I digressed.
Well, yeah, you did and you didn't. Is that the first time you tried freediving yourself? Like, when do you take the scuba off and like experience that yourself?
Well, I suppose I've always snorkeled and really enjoyed the feeling of weightlessness on a breath hold in swimming pools, but I never formally heard of the discipline of freediving. So I did in 2019, I did 5 days, and it was 2020. I get mixed up. I'm so new to this sport. I was 47 or 48. And I went back to Ireland, and it was fascinating to me. Just that the wetsuits were so light that you could do this at all, that I could suspend everything and circumvent time, in the same idea that I've always thought that time stops when you go underwater, wrecks get stuck. Actually, I can stop time. I can suspend belief around time passing. Somehow this was like a kind of a very captivating thought for me. And I came back to Ireland, and I thought, how can I get back out to this place and experience more and develop this? Because I think I have an aptitude for it.
Did you
And
go
during
into the blue hole when you were in Egypt?
yeah, it's
Okay.
literally just a swim off the beach.
Right,
You
like
travel. Yeah,
deep. Okay.
yeah, but look, you're just floating over the top. You just swim off the beach, and you just paddle out, and within it's right there. There's no distance before you are over this phenomenal natural feature.
But you didn't free dive down.
I did on the first course. Yeah, I think I probably did 20-25 meters in the
Okay.
first few days it's IDA 2. So IDA is the agency that oversees the education. There's a couple of them, but that's the one I did. Yeah, and
Gotcha.
they take, so it sounds scary, but everybody has this ability. We have this thing called the mammalian dive reflex, and it's the ability of all mammals to be able to hold their breath. And we have receptors just here. So when you take off your scuba mask, in fact, and cold water hits your face,
Mm-hmm.
they're activated, and you can hold your breath longer, and you will get this heart rate lowering down. If you're instructed in the method of calming yourself, because you have to be completely relaxed. If you're all up tense, you're going to use up more oxygen. So there's a whole system and peripheral ideology, which includes the body being soft. So the yoga really helped me. The 8 years of really heavy duty Bikram and getting into meditation and finding out how to soothe myself, in my own way, all came into play, just reconciled under this sport. And it's wonderful, Celine. It goes against any other kind of these adrenalized young man's sport team things where everybody's pumped up and they run around. It's an individual sport that age doesn't really come into it, but more trust in your own body. It plays such a major factor because it's a mental piece. You are constantly pushing against what you think your limits are. And obviously you're trying to increase your breath hold, but you'll keep coming up against 50 meters, 52, 53 meters. And it's like, well, what is the limiting factor here? And you'll find that it's yourself and your own anxiety or your fears. And so you become your own therapist in a way through the medium of the water. The whole thing, there's so much poetry bound up in both the practice and as I said, the peripheral exercises and I think there's a zeitgeist for that at the moment with I think of scuba coming to me, and maybe of age during the period when the internet just started to get going, and the whole idea was that external technology could facilitate us going forward culturally or societally. And now we're coming back to having more faith on our onboard software and rediscovering ourselves and putting trust back into the individual. I mean, we can't control anything else in society. There's so much that's beyond our control. Coming back and focusing in on yourself is a way to mitigate anxiety with the world. It's like, well, if I can calm my own self down and make my own way through this very confusing place, well, then I can feel okay. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think everyone resonates with that. I
Yeah.
I took us sort of on a little bit of a tangent because I wanted to understand that space, but let's go back to, you're in your late 40s, you're in Ireland. When do you really go all in and pursue this? And where does, not to add that to the question, but that's why we're here, where does menopause enter sort of this picture? Because you're in your late 40s, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
have you decided, because I know you have like records and you do this some like competitively, which is interesting because it doesn't sound like your pursuit is one of competition. So I'm just like, now I'm fascinated to like bring this together and be like, how did that happen? And you're in this time of life. Like, what does all this navigation look like?
Well, there was a confluence of a perfect storm between COVID. Um, I guess like my 40s started out great when I felt I was in control and I was doing my yoga and diet and all this. But like as it progressed and 46, 47 years of age came upon me, and I just felt there was some kind of creeping malaise. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, didn't know what the hell it was. And it was just through conversations with friends. They said, well, that's probably a menopausal thing. And I was like, oh, what, that's something that happens. I'm not, I mean, I feel healthy. I feel strong. That should be in my mid 50s, but no. So after going through burning out one doctor who was trying to put me back on the antidepressants, I went, no, there's something else going on. And I'm interested in supplements and stuff. And so I guess taking a like estrogen, but absolutely interested to try this. So I said, put me on the HRT. So I tried it out, and literally before I went to Egypt in 2020, it was the very end of 2020. I had planned to spend 1 month there. This was 1 year after I'd started freediving. In December, I had started the HRT patch. So I'd started on estrogen and then taken progesterone for the second half of the month. Now I arrived in Egypt in January, and the first couple of weeks, I have to tell you, were really bumpy as my body adjusted to progesterone, and I felt really dislocated from myself. And then my flights all got cancelled home. So I got stuck in Egypt. I was on the HRT, and I said, I'm gonna stay here. I said, I am expecting this to work. So whether it was placebo or it actually did kick in, my tail started wagging again. The sense of adventure. I said, I'm gifting myself this one way or the other. Okay, I was legitimately stuck out there. I had 5 disrupted flights. Europe got locked down. There was fines for being you had to go into what's called compulsory quarantine at a cost of $2,000 a week or something. So it was just like, well, I work as a film art department production designer for film. So that had all been squashed. it was just gone. So my friends were saying, if you come back here, we're going to slap you. But we can't, because there's nothing. Stay where you are. So I went, right, I will. And I'm going to explore this. And I did. And by the time May came around, I found myself a coach in a Brazilian university professor who has a doctorate in physics, who was on sabbatical out there, Raphael. And he was guiding me through the mechanics and the techniques of no fins freediving. I had transformed my breaststroke into going from vertical into the, from the horizontal into the
Horizontal to
vertical.
vertical. Yep.
And that's like a metaphor for the graph of my life. I just thought I was really enjoying the anarchy of COVID. And sorry, people out there, some people had a distressing time of it, but I thought this is going to challenge everything. I think society is broken, and there's so much that we overlook in people and in everything that we do that perhaps we're going to get a reset. I was so hopeful. And as I said, it just coincided with me taking this HRT, and the whole thing just blossomed for me. Yeah.
So tell me more about what you were working on with Raphael. Like what is that, where you decide that you're going to like set records, or?
Well, no, the competition thing, effectively, I shouldn't have been outside of the country during COVID, and I got legitimately locked out. And I was like, I'm very worried. I was just a little bit stressed about being away for so long, and just like jettisoning everything and throwing caution to the wind to be in this place was a bit weird. So I looked up, and it said, if you were an athlete representing your country and you're in training abroad, you're sanctioned by the government to be allowed to be away. So I went, right, it's clear. What I have to do is enter a competition for freediving, and I did. Now, when I noticed the records were quite low and achievable for me, I said, I'll aim for that. And then that will, I've got a completely new persona. Why not shift gears completely and test if I can be flexible enough to, you know what I mean, in my day-to-day activities, and just experiment with this and try something completely new with my body. Trust my body again, to do something. And it was just a gradual process over a period of months that became more and more enriching and nourishing for me, and the meditative quality, everything just sat so well. So I was very, very lucky to have had this opportunity, the opportunity that COVID and HRT together gave me. Yeah.
Talk about turning 50 and securing that world record dive at 43 meters.
So I was 49 setting the national records that summer in Egypt, and I just turned 49 in May. And again, my coach Rafa was saying to me, Nina, you know, CMAS, which is the governing body that oversees my sport, have bracketed age groups. So I'll be passing. He said, once you're 50, effectively, you could set a new world record. The record is currently at 40 meters for no fins, and you're clearly capable of more than what I was doing. I think I set 34 meters or something at that point. So he said, why don't you keep your freediving going? And I just thought that was so bombastic and outrageous an idea, that you could actually score a world record, and especially after only 2 years. And of course, there's this milestone of this 50th. And it's like, how can I conceive of being 50? What does this mean? Well, I just went, fact that, let's concentrate on getting a world record instead. So that will take over, that will eclipse the entire 50th. So I did that, and in October last year I set the first logged, the deepest logged no fins dive for a woman aged 50 to 54 in the masters category, and it was just surreal. Everything about traveling to Turkey, where it was held, being in the competition, on the athlete's boat, using dancing to relax my body before I went out on my dive.
What did you do? Were you actually like dancing on the boat? She's dancing for those who...
Like, what do? You want to get those hips moving? You want to reassure yourself that you're able, and your happiest places is in the water and on dance floors, when your body is talking back to you, when you're getting feedback and you're putting energy in the source of some beautiful music that you emotionally connect to, and you're allowing this travel all the way around to soothe your body. What could be better? And it's the same. Then you go into the water. In my mind, at the bottom of when I go down and I take the tag, that's what we do in freediving. I have to come back and show I was there with the tag. Mentally, I play a tune, I turn it on, and I have the rhythm then
Oh.
back up. So
So are you
yeah,
attached to the rope? I mean, when you look at
yeah. So there's a line that goes down. So I'd say drop the line to 50 meters. My target depth is 50.
yep.
And they drop it down. At the bottom, there's a little plate with these tags on. It's probably could have demonstrated here, but effectively, I've got a lanyard with a leash, and I'm leashed on. So I mean, I'm conscious. I can see the line as I'm going down, but I'm also, there's a lanyard, so I can't go missing if anything happens. There's all kinds of safety protocols there. You know, they can lift up the line. There's people spotting you. There's a bottom camera. Yeah, like it's super safe, and we've done the dive over and over and over again. I mean, there's a super amount of stress in a competition. You're being watched. You know, this is a high stakes situation, and also I had paid like €800 to. Well, myself and a friend was making he was making an art film, another artist friend, about me. We decided we'd go havers on Dive Eye, which is this parallel camera that goes down.
Oh.
So I knew I could see this, and I could hear it, and I knew it was on me. And I had two dives. I set the record in my first dive, and then it all went crazy in the Irish media, and I was doing radio interviews and all this kind of stuff the day before I was going to do a world record during the main competition, when the dive eye and everything was all set up. And I was just going to put an extra 1 meter on. So it was just a lot of stress, and I kind of made an absolute mess of that dive. But I was gonna outdo myself by 1 meter, which didn't happen. Even though I'd been doing it, say 47, 48 meters in training, under no duress. In a stress situation, you have to, I guess, compensate,
I can't
pay in full.
imagine. Like, I mean, I do, like, and most of the audience here does some sort of competition, whether it be a marathon or whatever. And the nerves, to manage your nerves when
Yeah.
you're not so, so far underneath the water, and holding your breath and can try and control all that is a mission in of itself. I cannot imagine putting what you're doing in that, putting those two things together.
Well, it's quite technical. You know yourself when you're in a sport. Like I've got a dive computer. I wear it here so I can hear it, and I've got alarms. I know how many strokes down before I do kind of these mouth fills and various. I have to keep pressure in my mouth and eustachian tubes to allow me continually equalize as I go down deeper. There's a lot of skill in this kind of manipulation of your air spaces. How much breath you can hold, and technique and speed and all these things. So you're kind of, and as I said, I've got this music and then I've got this rhythm thing. So you kind of displace anxiety with these
Mm-hmm.
other kind of factors, because it's a technical dive.
Right.
But yeah, when you're starting off free diving, these things do come into play. You kind of worry, I've never held my breath. How am I going to get back up? How deep down am I? Your sense of gravity is gone. You get dislocation, but you have to embrace all these. So it's a flexibility of mind, being malleable, being open to new experiences, not being afraid is key, you know?
Do you
Stepping out
practice
into,
just holding your breath? I mean, you held your breath for over two
yeah, yeah,
minutes.
yeah. Yeah, so we do CO2 tolerance tables and we do hypoxic tables. So I sit down on dry land and I've got an app. It's like a timer, and basically I'll set it for like 1 minute 30. I hold my breath for 1:30. It'll give me 1 minute breathing time, and then it'll go back to 1:30, and then you get 50 seconds at shorter intervals. And your body gets used to the CO2 buildup, which the urge to breathe comes from. It's not the lack of oxygen in your system, but
Right.
it's more this the want to exhale, for want of a better word, is the overriding sensation. And you'll get contractions. You'll get this involuntary abdominal diaphragm contraction. So it's your body trying to, intervene and go, what are you doing? Hold your breath. But you get used to those, and yoga and abdominal exercises to soften that, because the body has to be yin. It has to be soft. It has to allow the pressure at depth, and it can't resist. It can't be forceful. So you just surrender. It's this very yin thing of allowing it all, moving your body in to allow the compression of your lungs, which will go down to the size of an orange or something at 40-45 meters. Your blood shifts. Your blood comes from your extremities, from your hands and your feet, and it'll go in to protect the vital organs. The spleen contracts. More red blood cells are produced. These are all the physiological side effects of this mammalian dive response. It's a fascinating thing. It's an ancient piece of software that is redundant in our day, but you can kick it off, as I said, by putting your face into cold water. Cold water, for some reason, sets it off. To take off your mask if you're in the water and allow this to happen. If you go to snorkel, and then pace your breathing, taking a breath cycle of 3 or 4 in your inhale, and then a longer 6 to 8 seconds. And if you do a minute or 2 minutes of this, you'll find your whole bodily system starting to shift down into a calmer state. And then you'll start pissing into your wetsuit, which is another, I call it the parasympathetic piss way, the pathway. But everything relaxes, and yeah, sorry, too much for some people.
No, no, no. I mean,
all
triathletes
scuba
pee
divers
themselves
and
all the time, on
yeah,
their bike, on the don't even worry about it.
it's just part of succumbing to this. You're becoming like water in a lot of ways. You just, and you can actually follow down, and I'm doing it now. I'm not pissing now, but I'm following down that sympathetic pathway into the lower abdominals in this sense of release and relaxation. And it's not something that you only ever think about if you go and take to urinate, to sit down and take a. Actually, I was so stressed one time on a film set. This will tell you the connection. I was there and they were shooting, and I didn't get a chance. I was like, oh my God, I'm dying to take a pee. When am I going to get a chance? I was looking around waiting, and I was so many tasks to do. Anyway, I saw a moment, ran upstairs, ran into the cubicle, sat down, and I sat for a moment. I couldn't remember which chain of muscles I was supposed to use. I was that disassociated with stress from something as basic as taking a pee. Can you imagine? Anyway, so there's the contrast between relaxation just in that. And I mean, you can self-soothe in all kinds of ways, in the breathing, and access the nervous system that's normally a little bit outside of your conscious control. And these are aspects to freediving which are really curious and interesting to me.
Well, and it also, I keep thinking, this is a time of life, and a lot of it is hormonally driven, but, I think sometimes it's also a collision of this time of life where a lot of women experience anxiety that they haven't experienced before. I've experienced it as a mountain biker. Like, all of a sudden, something that I've ridden 100 times is like scary to me. Like, I've not felt that anxiety before, or fear. And it's all these tools that you're talking about, like, seem this so potentially transcendent, into life, like to be able to be in that state of water, to be in that state of relaxation. It sounds very useful, for lack of a better adjective.
Yeah, I think primarily coming back to yourself and finding trust and like a renewed relationship with yourself, that that whatever happens, you're going to be clever enough to get around this. That when we've got to invest in our bodies, as we age, you'll see that things are changing, and this menopause thing is like it's a clear signal going, right, you got to shift gears here. Something's got to change. Your mentality towards yourself, to give yourself extra time, extra love, extra sleep, fuel yourself better, hydrate yourself better, pay attention if you can, if you have the luxury of the time to do this. I mean, lucky me, I never got married or had kids. So I mean, there's other things, but I'm sure women are coming back. I have lots of my best buddies are coming around now. Their kids are getting older and stuff, and they're thinking, well, I can see I've half my life lived,
Mm.
and I see I want to take more control of the next half. So where do we start? I mean, maybe this is just the beginning, and then I'll go back into more academic art making and or whatever. But like the freediving for me was a kind of an experiential process, research towards my artwork. It's all connected. But yeah, absolutely, Celine, look, the finding ways to reduce stress in your life, to reconnect with yourself. It's kind of like that metaphor when you're on the plane, and the plane, whatever's going to go down or something, and it's like you put your own breathing
Hmm.
apparatus on first, and you tend to your kids. You cannot help other people or be of benefit to society or help your parents or your
Mm.
siblings or your friends or do good unless you look after yourself first. And this should be a moment all women should take to invest in themselves and go, right, I need to figure this out. Just spend a little bit of time to get your systems, optimize them, uh, you know, and then and look forward. Look, I think that we shouldn't look at aging with fear, because I think we're entering into a whole new um, period of time where we're looking at aging as not something that's necessarily going to make us frail. That and especially using hormone replacement therapy, the bioidentical stuff that I'm on. It's everybody's own choice whether they want to go that way or not. But if we have a whole generation of women going forward using this, we're rewriting history. We don't have to look at our parents, our grandmothers, and effectively the entire history of older women as it's our legacy. We can we're open to rewriting this from here on in, and that's the way I look at it. Uh, we've never had more control and optimism, I think, over this process. I think that the 21st century is going to see leaps in biological advances as well. I mean, wearables, AI. There's just, I think it's open for. It's a very positive time for us. You know.
I say that all the time on the show. Like
Yeah.
I'm, and I personally, I mean, and I've shared this before, I'm not on hormone therapy. I feel
Hey.
I feel great. I have my wearables
Hey.
and I keep track, and I feel but the control piece is the big piece. Like but I'm not anti it by any stretch. Like I know like it's given many women's life back. If I had low bone density, if I had anything that I felt like I needed or wanted it for, I 100% would take it. Like that should be
Yeah.
every woman's choice. But we are 100% aging 1,000% differently than the generations before us. So, like engaging life in such a different way, self-awareness of, oh, we can do something during this menopause, whether it is hormone therapy or changing things up or leaving, like taking just that control of like, I am going to hit the weight room. I am going to get a control of the stress. I am going to take hormone therapy. I am going to take it, whatever it is. We have that agency. And I think that is very optimistic and promising for the future. 100%. I'm 100% with you. I feel, yeah, very bright about that.
I'm excited. I mean, I feel like I'm shape shifting now, that I'm open to change, that I'm not rigid. I'm not stuck in. I've given myself license to experiment, and it's like they say that the hormones like becoming a teenager again. Yeah, it kind of is in a lot of ways. Uh, we should really be like rejoicing in this. You get bored of the old ways. I've already lived 50 years or whatever. Now I'm 51. It's like, well, why can't we just change some stuff up and experiment here with some some other ways of being, continue on. I can get stronger. Of course I can get stronger. I was doing compound exercises in the gym today and moving around and really enjoying the feedback from all the muscle groups and my strength in turning, and even just being on the bike coming back and feeling strong, you know, it's just so empowering.
What does your
There's
training look like? I mean, is there a lot of gym work that you do to complement what you do?
well, here at the moment, I'm diving 2 days on, 1 day off. So I'll be out in the water. Yeah, so that's the primary piece. But yoga, I will connect to my studio in Dublin, my Bikram studio at 5 o'clock. I'll do that a couple of times a week. I'll go, yeah, definitely strength training. So building up the muscles. Lats for me is a big thing. The pull down, because my
Yeah.
stroke is pushing the water. Flexibility. So I'll be doing some yoga with I need to kind of kick my legs out to, clam with my thighs together. So abductors, I have to be very careful not to strain them, because I kind of nearly did one of them in the other morning. I was like, fucking, you need to stretch and warm up and pay careful attention before you go out and do these things. Because if I get an injury, that's me having to not do that, and I have to flip to doing bifins or else. It's me out of the kind of water. So and again, sleeping, hydrating, all these things are key. And I will be doing, yeah, there's the CO2 tolerance. There is equalization drills, so bringing up air. Yeah, we use a balloon out our nose to kind of inflate and allow the soft palate open, and glottis closing exercises. So
Oh, wow.
compartmental strengthening my various air spaces so that I can open and close them. Like, again, this is another involuntary thing, like the soft palate. I have to keep that open while I'm doing my deep dives, in order to allow the air to go into these stations. Anybody that's on a plane, when you need to
Yeah.
pop your
Hold your
ears,
nose and open your
yeah,
ears
exactly
and yeah.
same thing as that, only it's more advanced. And the deeper you go down, the less air you have to play with, and the more careful you have to manage, and pushing up your tongue into the back of your air spaces to keep pressing up. These kinds of, that's my training.
Have you ever had any blackouts or scary moments during all
Yeah,
of this? Yeah.
yeah. I was pushing my max last September, just before the World Championships, while I was training in Kash in Turkey with my coach out there. And when you reach your hypoxic limit, so your oxygen saturation goes down below whatever it is, 90, 80%, the first results when you come up to the buoy, because you'll keep going as far as you can, you get LMC, loss of motor control. So your body will shake. And in a competition situation, we have a surface protocol. So you have to come up to the water, hold on to the buoy, and there's a series of things you're supposed to say to show your compos mentis to the judges and prove that the dive was easy for you. So you'll hold up on the line, you have to keep your airways out of the space, and that shows that you've got control over your limbic system. And then you clear any facial equipment, nose clip, mask off. You give the okay sign, and you eyeball the judges, and you go, I'm okay. So you have to have this sequence in the right order. So we always try to get that will give you a white card and a clean dive. If you go beyond your hypoxic limit. For me, I did in live on YouTube in front of my parents and my friends watching at home during the World Championships. I was going for that 44-meter dive, and I blacked out at 2 meters just underneath. Now there's safety divers who chaperone you up from 40, 30, 20, 10. There's 4 of them there. The spotters on the top. You'll just go out, and they can see, and they'll come in, and they'll bring you up, and they'll just bring you around within a couple of seconds. You're totally fine. But you do the ejector seat mentally engages. You go down through the tunnel of light, and when you black out, I think your body goes into that out of body experience, and it's like what people talk about when they're having near-death experiences. And you come to, and you're like, some French guy snogging you, he's actually giving you a breath mouth to mouth. You're like, okay, this has all been straight, a little bit odd. But yeah, blackout. It's like, look, it's like boxing. It's like getting a knockout in boxing. It happens. We obviously don't want it because it's a red card. It's not a clean dive. You don't get your records. You want to show that you're capable, but how do you mitigate for this stresses and various things, various situations when you're pushing your max in a competition situation?
Yeah.
You
No,
have
yeah, I mean, it's totally. So speaking about competition situations, you are where you are because you're training for one. So your current goal is representing Ireland in the CMAS Freedive Outdoor World Championships. Is that correct? Like, what are we
Well,
attempting next?
um, the CMAS is coming up pretty quick in August. To be honest, I might postpone. Well, I'm going to do a competition here, and IDA. So the funny thing about freediving is that there's two agencies that oversee records. One is IDA and one
Okay.
is CMAS. My world record is in CMAS, but my IDA records are. It's just I had one national record which has recently been taken. So the Irish chicks are catching up on the no fins. So yeah, I want to do a competition here probably in mid-August. That gives me 6 weeks training time, which is a good target because I've been here a while, but it's been slow getting into getting bitten to bits by mosquitoes, man. And jellyfish. There's all kinds of like weird things you have to, and then you've moved to a new place, you got a bit of jet lag. Anyway, all those things you get over, you get into your training. So I'll do a competition here mid-August, and then I might go visit a friend in Malaysia on the way back. She's a freediving school, a dear friend of mine, Stella. And then I'll get back to Ireland for September, and then I think I will do a CMAS competition in October in Greece. So yeah, it's wonderful to have a competition as a definite target because you go, oh shit, and you go, I've paid €500, whatever it is, to enter this. I've invested in myself. I'm going to do this. They're great to look. Freediving and competitions is one thing. The confidence it's given me in other areas of my life, I can't quantify. It's changed my sense of myself to have this achievement. And I've gone out and I've initiated all kinds of interest in our projects in the climate related, water, public sculpture, kind of, it's renewed. This is a great period time in life, Celine, to get involved with competitions. I mean, it gives you a target, you work towards it, and you accomplish something. You got deadlines, and if you fulfill it, okay, I'm a bit of an exception. I just had opportunities, and people around me knew things I could aim for, and were really helpful. So I'm a bit of an outlier, I suppose, in extremes, but you never know.
Well, I've read that your mantra has been sort of, if you take a step, the bridge will appear, and I'm certainly hearing that throughout this conversation and what you just said. Do you feel like that you're living that right now?
You've got to have faith and trust in yourself. Yeah, your relationship with yourself primarily, and then from that, I think everything else, hopefully, uh, it amplifies this trust, and and it moves out into your wider kind of life, and you hopefully follow the path that feels right for you in the moment. Okay, I'm still mitigating for work and all these. It's not like I've completely thrown caution to the wind. So there's a certain amount of balance in what I'm doing, but I'll go back to Ireland, and I'll continue on with my projects. And my projects are ongoing here. I can work kind of remotely on my art stuff and other things, initiate them. But yeah, it's the most important thing, your relationship with yourself, and whatever you have to do to nourish and encourage yourself along the way. And then there is a certain sense of excitement in not knowing what's going to happen next, and that's the added spice. So how far can I go with this? How deep can I go? Can I go out there and put another 2 or 3 meters on my dive tomorrow? Am I ready for that? And you just go, yeah, well, fucking, we're going to try it. It's the worst that can happen. Try a new thing. Step outside your comfort zone. In any aspect of your life, talk to somebody, get outside your shyness sphere. But your body is your primary tool in all of this. So to cultivate a positive, energetic relationship with yourself, and if that's with your own dancing by yourself, singing, this reciprocal kind of nature of this beautiful planet around us, it's a great privilege to be alive, and especially in our 50s, where and being able to take control of things. There's something of a kind of a secret kind of way forward. This women's group kind of, I don't know, there's power in it. There really is.
There really is,
And
and I think that's a good place to wrap this up. Yeah.
the support of other chicks as well. They're going through the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
Is there anything? I mean, I do think that was the perfect way to conclude the conversation. But is there anything that you would like to convey that we haven't talked about?
No, not really. I hear you mountain bike. I used to race BMXs in the 80s. I
Nice.
don't know where that's been. We've got some just fluidity and move. I keep using these watery metaphors, but just finding joy in movement. And even if it's walking, but paying this meditative attention to the power of your body, because we've got to keep this going. This is, as I just keep saying, this is our primary instrument of perception for this world, and it's our primary medium for interfacing with everything that we do. And then to hone that in, tweak it, and try to improve on our systems, just for the joy of it. I think there's a lot to be said for it. And even if it's something that can't be explained in language, because it has to be practiced, is just to go out and move your body.
Amen. Well, that's our show. Come on back next week for my conversation with ultra running phenom Camille Herron, who is smashing world records during perimenopause and is here to tell us how. So come on back for that one. And until then, as always, stay feisty.